I just think that somehow the fact that purpose and impact gets lost in the fact that if you don't have profit, you can't actually fulfill your purpose. So to me, they always go hand in hand. For some reason, they've been separated. I'm a strong proponent of we are the ones that get in our own way. It's not everybody else. It's not the people that we want as customers or clients. It's us, right? It's us that's preventing us from charging what we should charge, the value that we're providing. It's us. So really nailing down, like, who are you? Who do you want to be in this world? What impact do you want to have? Being able to anchor people in that and give them a sense of empowerment around their choices and the fact that they can build whatever they want. They always have choice.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Purpose. I'm here with Brian Thompson, and I am so excited to have you here. It's so wonderful that your team was able to reach out, and happy to have you on Talking Purpose. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm excited to talk with you. I love finding more values-aligned people, so it sounds like we are on the same mission, trying to do the same thing. So I'm excited to share and then learn from you as well.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, when I was reading more about you and your company, I was like, oh man, this is so perfect for the podcast. And, financials are certainly out of my realm of genius. And so it's really great to have you because you can kind of speak to that aspect and really speak to it with a lens of sustainability, values, purpose-driven business operations. So let's just start from the beginning. How will you share your story in terms of how you got started, how you came to launch Brian Thompson Financial, and specifically specialize in mission-driven entrepreneurs?
Sure. So I focus on LGBTQ entrepreneurs who run mission-driven businesses. I help them run impactful and profitable businesses. I'm also a tax attorney, so I spent 10 years defending people against the IRS and representing people against the IRS. And that work was really fun and fulfilling, but it always was stressful. Everyone came to be in trouble, and I felt like there was always some sort of conflict going on. And so that didn't really feel good. And after a while, I just realized that I wanted to do something else. I wanted to help people be more proactive rather than reactive. And so I actually started Brian Thompson Financial as a financial advising firm that just focused on LGBTQ couples. At that time, marriage equality was coming to pass in the States, and I wanted to help my community really get access to the 1,100 benefits that we were about to get. And then once I did that, it was really fun, but I felt really pulled in different directions. And because of my tax attorney background, many business owners kept coming to me because they knew that I knew how to set up a business and make sure that they didn't get in trouble with the IRS. And so a few years in, I decided that I wanted to niche down, make sure that I'm really specialized because I knew I didn't want to do too many things. I wanted to be a specialized service. And so I decided I love the complexity of entrepreneurship and business owners. I still want to make sure that people are using their money in a way that gives them an impactful and fulfilling life. And so the two just sort of corresponded where I've focused on mission-driven businesses, helping businesses make impact, but also make profit so they can do what they do best and also live the life that they want.
I love that. And I don't feel like at least I haven't come across many folks like you that are niching down into this market. And so it's great because obviously navigating this space and opening up a business and making sure that it's all compliant is incredibly complicated. And so having someone like yourself who not only gets the space, but gets where they're headed is so important, especially, yeah. And it sounds like working in the U.S. is your market. Is that correct?
Yep.
Amazing.
Yep. Mostly in the United States. You're in Canada,
I
right?
am in Canada. Yeah. So we don't have to deal so much with the IRS, but we have our own tax police here. But that's excellent because, no matter what the acronym, it's still very scary when you're setting up a business.
Exactly. Yep. No one wants to get in trouble. No one wants to feel like they're going to have their business swiped from under their feet. So I get it. No matter where you live, it's something that people worry about.
Yep. And tax law, tax policy, it's all very, very dense. And so having someone who can take that on is so important. So I was reading a couple of your blog posts, like what sort of experiences shaped how you view the role of money in businesses and life? I thought that was really interesting. I'd love for you to share that with our listeners.
Yeah. So there are a couple of pivotal experiences. The biggest of which was when my dad died. I was in my senior year of college, and my dad died and left my mom a lot of money. And she had no idea what to do with it. She was always the person that left that to my dad to manage the money. And with him no longer there, all of a sudden she had to take over and had no idea what to do. And so me being the son that I am, I tried to dive in and help out. And I realized in diving in that I just loved this. I love the complexity of money and what money does and the rules around money and how people make more money. And so I just really fell in love with it. And also at that time, I was going through law school and took a tax class that, we just mentioned the complexities of the tax system and policy and all that stuff. And I couldn't feel more at home in the concept of tax laws that had these rules, but then there were exceptions to the rules, and then there were exceptions to the exceptions. And so I just, again, fell in love and kept studying, kept learning. I thought I was going to leave law school to become an accountant just because I loved numbers and the tax law so much. But one of my mentors said, no, you can go ahead and be a tax lawyer. And so that's what I did. And I think it's just a part of my personality, right? And the unique thing about what I do too is there is a philosophical nature. I was also a philosophy and English writing double major in college. So the philosophical aspect of mission, vision, values, using your money for purpose, fulfillment, right? All the soft and mushy stuff that people talk about is still also right at my alley. So I found a way to combine both strengths of my personality and, as you said, like your golden threads or your purpose on the earth. And I feel like this is mine.
Wow. You are certainly a unicorn. Having someone who wants to help people in the purpose-driven space, which is usually a money loss sector that people associate it with, at least. It's not necessarily true, but that's the association. And then I don't think there's many people coming out of tax law class being like, this is fantastic. And here you are. Well, thank goodness.
Also very true. Yep.
That's so funny. Well, let's dive into some of the pieces and the philosophies, if you will, about profit and purpose, and that the two can live in the space together and they're not mutually exclusive. So you said it's time to call BS on the idea that you have to choose between profit and purpose. So what's the biggest misconceptions founders have about the relationship between the two?
Well, I just think that somehow the fact that purpose and impact gets lost in the fact that, and I've heard you say in your podcast before, right? If you don't have profit, you can't actually fulfill your purpose. So to me, they always go hand in hand. For some reason, they've been separated. And I think it's because of the nonprofit industry, right? I have a lot of clients who come to me and say, should I be running enough nonprofit? And I'm like, no, not necessarily. There are reasons to run a nonprofit if you want grants or you want money from other people. But if you just want to have impact, you can do that on your own. You get to create whatever you want. And what I see most in entrepreneurs, the misconception that I see the most is that there are certain rules and limitations around running a business. And that it has to be a certain way. You have to throw all of your time and money into the business. And that means you're just focused on money and you're not really focused on making an impact in people's lives. And I try to dispel that myth and misconception because both of those things can be true. I've seen it. I've lived it. And I've seen so many people do such amazing, amazing things and also build a great life for themselves. And so that's what I try to really hammer down in my clients from the beginning. You get to create whatever you want, and whatever impact that you want, whatever life that you want to have, you can have it. It just really takes creating some intention around that and doing an assessment of what are your mission, vision, and values? What's driving you? What's your purpose? What do you see? What do you want this thing to be? And also then really getting into the fundamentals of, all right, so we know what you want to build. Here's what we need to do for cash flow, for taxes, for business structure, for marketing, right? All of those things really come together so that both purpose and profit can come together.
Yeah. And have you been able to see, like, it doesn't matter what kind of impact you want to make, there's always a way to make profit in that space and create an engine of money and impact? Or is there some that are like, this is a no-go?
I mean, I'm sure there's something in the world, but I just haven't come across it yet. And it may not be a direct one-to-one correlation, right? There are some people who have a product or a service that is the financial driver of their business that they then reinvest a portion of their profits in another business.
Right.
Or so there are different ways to really get around the impact that you want to have. The important part is being able to define the impact, what impact you want to have, and make sure that you have a clear goal and vision in mind. You may not get there and it may not be a straight shot there, but there are ways to create a business where it actually gets to where you want it to be. So I've not come across a business that can't do it yet, but I'm sure there's something out there.
Well, I mean, that's music to my ears. I'm sure it's music to the listeners' ears too. It's like, it's doable. You just need to get your numbers and your house in order.
You can create whatever you want. That's the phrase I always hold on to. You can create whatever you want, and it takes a while for people to internalize that, but once you do, it's off to the races.
That's awesome. Do you think, I'm getting off script here, but do you think
Please.
it's a mindset block as well for people where they think that they're going in to create an impact-based business and it almost makes them allergic to having to do the numbers? I don't know. I'd love to know what it is, because you're clearly telling me that, it's very, very doable from a numbers crunching perspective. And yet
Yeah.
you have people out there that are like, oh, I gave it a go. And
Yeah. I completely agree that it's mindset. And I'm a strong proponent of we are the ones that get in our own way. It's not everybody else. It's not the people that we want as customers or clients. It's us, right? It's us that's preventing us from charging what we should charge, the value that we're providing. That's us. And so really nailing down like, all right, so who are you? Who do you want to be in this world? What impact do you want to have? Being able to anchor people in that and give them a sense of empowerment around their choices and the fact that they can build whatever they want. They always have choice. It takes time, right? We are all in a world where we're inundated with ideas and thoughts about what should be or how things should happen or what being an entrepreneur is like, right? The entrepreneur hustle and the really working yourself to the bone, working yourself to death. It doesn't have to be that way. There are no shoulds. And as soon as we can get our minds out of that mindset of it has to be a certain way or I have to do a certain thing and say, I'm going to build something that's really impactful and profitable, it's the best place to start. And I will speak for myself. I will always continue to get my way. It's not a one and done thing. It's this mindset shift is a continued practice every day, waking up and saying, I can build whatever I want. I can build whatever I want. I can build whatever I want. Even if people are telling you that they're not going to be clients or you're not going to get certain types of business, like you just got to keep reminding yourself of that mindset shift. It's a great point.
I like that. That is so, so helpful. And I know that you've helped so many businesses push through that. And so that's so important. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later. I want to talk more about the founder experience, but I want to get into some of the weeds a little bit because, like I said, I'm not necessarily a numbers gal. But for product-based brands that are purpose-led, how do you define a healthy profit and one that supports both growth and impact?
I love the profit first approach. And so it talks about being able to set aside a certain amount of money for profit, for owner's compensation, for taxes, and then for operating expenses. And so the different percentages depends on how big your revenue is. And so if you start out at a lower sense of revenue, then more of your money is going to go to you because you're the one working in the business. You're the one making it go.
Right.
But as you continue to grow, more of that shift is going to go to operating expenses and less to owner's comp and a little bit less to profit. But because the business is expanding and the amount of money coming in is growing, the money that you get is going to be bigger, even if your profit goes from 5 to 10 to 15 back to 10. Right. So it really depends on the size of the business. And so every business is different. But we want to make sure that we have good percentages for a business of your size. And so we always start with where my clients are, how much revenue are they bringing in? How much of it is going out at the door? How much are they paying in taxes? So we can get the right percentages. But profit is always a percentage in and of itself. We start people at 5, we go to 10 and continue to grow as the business grows. But you always want to have some sort of percentage set aside for profit so you're a profitable business right away. I know a lot of people talk about throwing money back into the business. Yes, you want to do that. But as you pointed out, you want to have some balance. And you also want to make sure that the business is profitable because if you burn yourself out or you can't pay your own expenses, it's going to reflect in the business.
Yeah.
And so making sure that you're taken care of first is also the thing that I suggest to my clients.
I like this. And it actually segues nicely into my next question is, what role does cash flow play in freedom and purpose? And how can founders design a money system? I know you talk about money systems that lets them reinvest in their mission and pay themselves. And I think a lot of the times founders in this space forget about themselves. They're, they're the 2 on the Enneagram. They're the helper. They're like shirts off their back immediately. And it's like, you have bills, right? So how, and obviously you talk about this percentage piece. But yeah, how can they avoid burnout also? Because that's a big thing for this industry.
Absolutely. Burnout is a huge thing. And again, I think it goes back to this hustle culture that has been built around entrepreneurship, that you have to really kill yourself or sacrifice everything. And I can relate. I'm also a 2 on the Enneagram, and I'm a helper. I want to do things for other people, but I've learned that I can't do things for other people if I'm not healthy and thriving. And so this shift in mindset around making sure that you take care of yourself first, so then you can take care of other people. And I think once people internalize that there's a purpose behind taking care of yourself, making sure that you do pay your bills and that you're not strapped and stressed, because that will, again, reflect in your business, making sure that you start there is a wonderfully important mindset shift that it takes a lot of us a while to really navigate. But once we do, then we understand that there's a purpose and a relationship to everything. And making sure that I'm taking care of myself is going to benefit the business and other people in the long run. And the cash flow system is so important. I think people often confuse cash flow with accounting, right? That somehow,
Right.
If you have a good profit and loss, or what's on your balance sheet, which most entrepreneurs don't, they don't care about the numbers, that's a separate concept. So we make sure that we talk about your numbers, your profit and loss, your balance sheet, your tax structure, but also cash flow. How much money is coming in and out of the business, cash to you? And how much do you need? Being able to really talk about an end goal. I call it my Thrive number. Where are you trying to get to? And what are you trying to make sure that you can have as far as this business for you to take home personally, for you to give yourself a profit bonus every quarter? What is that number? And being able to shoot for that. And then you can do pricing backwards from that.
Okay.
I remember in your solo podcast, you talked about the importance of pricing and pricing correctly. It's really about navigating the balance there and making sure that obviously you want to be priced within the market, but you also don't want to underprice, right? And heard you say that you don't want the price to be so low that people don't value what you do, right? And so there's always this mix and match of pricing and value. And I'm always a huge proponent of value pricing, making sure that you are pricing according to the value that you're bringing, not the time that you're spending, not the cost of something, but making sure that the value that you're creating and putting in the world is also involved in that process of pricing. And if you can get the pricing right, then the cash flow becomes a little easier. Obviously, you still need to have the percentages that we talked about. You still need to make sure that some is associated with profit. You still need to know that some is associated with your owner's compensation. You got to pay your taxes. And then knowing what you have to play with as far as operating expenses helps you make better decisions. And this is why I also think, as far as an important cash flow tool, as having separate accounts.
Okay.
So whether you call it profit first, whether you call it the bucket system, whether you call it the envelope system, there's different varieties of this, but they all do the same thing. They want you to see what is in each bucket separately, so you know how to make decisions for that bucket. Because if all of your money is put together, you don't know how much is associated with taxes, you don't know how much is associated for operating expenses, you don't know how much is going to be used to pay yourself. It's very confusing, and it's hard to make decisions because you could feel like you have more money than you actually do. But if you have a separate bucket for operating expenses, I have 10 grand in this bucket to spend rather than 50 grand, right? And so being able to literally see it, open your bank account and see it, is such an important cash flow tool.
Okay. So you say to businesses, open 3 separate accounts so that you can see what's coming in and out of each of them so that you can make these types of decisions?
I usually start with 6, 5 or 6. We have an income account. All of your money goes into the income account.
Okay.
You have a profit account like we talked about. You give yourself a percentage of the profit every time that you want to do the profit allocations. I usually do it twice a month or once a month. Profit, owner's comp account, and then a tax account, and then an operating account. So those are the main 5, but I also have my clients have an emergency fund account because we all know that business income is not always the way that you want it to be. And if you want to really make sure that you have the best cash flow, you're going to need emergency reserves to help with those up and down times. And so we usually have my clients start with 6, and we can add different accounts for payroll. We can add different accounts for investing in the business. We can make an account for whatever we want. But the important part to me is to see how much money you have in each bucket.
Right.
And I think it's easier for entrepreneurs because a lot of people, like you were talking about, are not money people. They don't want to look at numbers or spreadsheets, or their eyes glaze over when they look at numbers or spreadsheets. This makes it easy. You have a certain amount of money to pay yourself. You have a certain amount of money in the emergency fund. You have a certain amount of money in operating expenses. Being able to open up your bank account and see it makes things a lot easier and helps you make better decisions.
That's awesome. I haven't heard that. And so I think that that's very helpful. I could probably learn a thing or two from this as well. So that's awesome. No, I like that. I mean, it's really,
Great.
really smart. And, a perfect segue, you're talking about emergencies, you're talking about saving for a rainy day in uncertain times. And probably, as we are on a trajectory towards uncertain times, what financial? I know it's not looking good these
To
days.
say the least.
It's not looking great these days. But
Yeah.
what financial practices do you recommend for purpose-driven product brands to stay resilient during these times? I mean, there's that one thing, that emergency fund, but are there other things that they can do financially?
Yeah.
And that it's really just, what can people expect, but then also think about when looking towards the future and not being able to, we don't have crystal balls.
Yeah. We don't have crystal balls. And everything is tenuous, right? I know it feels especially tenuous in this time, in this moment, especially in our country, but that's always been the case, right? There is no certainty. There is no stability in the fact that how things are going to go. Things can change in a minute. The reason I love this question is because we should always be doing this. Yes, in times like this especially, and I'm getting this question a ton right now, but always being able to have, I think it starts with having the foundation, knowing exactly who you are, where you stand. That's actually the first part, and has nothing to do with financials, right? It's having an anchor, knowing that you are aligned and engaged with your mission, vision, and values. You know exactly what they are. You have them written down somewhere. You could repeat it to somebody and in a few minutes, right? Knowing who you are and who you serve is going to really help you in times of uncertainty, because you are able to steadfast and say, no, this is who I am. I am a big believer that your identity is an asset, not a liability. So even in scary times when you feel like the government may be going after you for who you are or what you do, being able to really double down and say, nope, this is who I am, this is who I represent, and being a beacon for those people who are looking for you is actually going to make your business more sustainable, because they're going to know exactly where to go when they need an LGBTQ financial advisor, right? And so I feel like it's helpful to really have the anchor in the mission, vision, and values is where I have people start and know where you're going. What is that vision that you're trying to build? Where are you trying to go? So you don't get distracted by all of the shiny objects that come your way, or all the fear and the uncertainty that's going to be coming your way. Building a business is always going to be hard. It's always going to be stressful. Not always. There are always going to be parts of it that are stressful and uncertain. And so being able to really have an anchor to guide you in those times is helpful. And then, like we talked about, having an emergency fund. I think, to me, really having clarity is key. Being able to know exactly what's coming in, what's coming out, which is why I love the 5 separate accounts, but also having clean books, making sure that you're updating and reconciling your books every week or every month, whatever it is that you need to do. Having that information is important for you to make decisions, right? It's not the fact that you know exactly how much money is coming in. It's knowing, all right, so this is what I'm spending on my operating expenses. Right. Are there things that I can shift? Are there things that I can do differently? I always say that you have 2 levers. You have the income lever, you have the expense lever if you're trying to change the trajectory of your business. Sometimes you need to pull one, sometimes you need to pull the other, sometimes you need to pull both. But you won't know that if you don't know what numbers you're looking at. You can't do this blindly.
Right.
And I think having a mission-driven business is all about intention. Being able to build something that has impact and profit with intention. And you can't have intention if you don't know where you're going or what you're working with. And these are the foundations for really keeping anchored and stable through uncertain times, which will always come.
I like it. I love that answer. That's a great answer. My goodness. I want to share something that I'm building alongside this podcast. It's a community for purpose-driven, product-based founders who don't want to build alone and who want to grow smarter, not just harder. After years of supporting founders at Shopify, I kept seeing the same thing. Mission-led entrepreneurs doing meaningful work, but lacking a peer space that helps them move faster and make better decisions without compromising their values. This community is designed to be a growth accelerator, a place to learn what's working, pressure test ideas, share real tactics, and build momentum together so growth feels intentional, supportive, and sustainable. If you're interested, join the waitlist. Find the link in the show notes below. We get out of the uncertain times where, we know they're always going to be uncertain. We hear the word financial freedom is, quite a big buzzword. You like to say using money as a tool for purpose and joy, which I love that because it's like, what is freedom anyways? So break that down for us and maybe share, if you can, if there's a concrete example of a brand who's doing this really well, where they're working well, they're doing impact well, and they're living well. Like, what does that look like? What is I think it's what everyone, obviously, when they set out to own a business, it's what they strive for. And so I'm sure the listeners would love to know who's out there doing this really nicely.
There are lots of examples. I feel like most people talk about Patagonia as the epitome of this example, where they have amazing products, they have an amazing impact, and they are still steady in their values and their impact that they want to have. All of those things are coming through in this one product. And it's because they have alignment, it's because they have vision, it's because they're really anchored in their mission, vision, and values. But it doesn't have to be a big company like that. I have plenty of clients who have smaller, couple $100,000 businesses that feel so aligned in what they do and who they are that you can tell that that's what freedom means to me, means to them. You ask, like, what is freedom? It's different for everyone. But I think the biggest benefit to, and I will speak for myself, to being an entrepreneur is this freedom, this ability to create whatever I want, to create a schedule that I want, to create how much income that I want, and to really know that it's not just about one thing. I love Sahil Bloom's book, The 5 Types of Wealth, that there are many types of wealth that we can have in our lives. It could be financial wealth, which is important. You can't have the other types of wealth without money, but you also want time wealth, the ability to really spend your time how you want to spend it. Mental wealth, to have serenity and clarity in who you are and your being and what you're doing and the purpose in your life. Social wealth, making sure that you're connected to the people and friends around you. And then physical wealth, making sure that you are feeling good in your body, you're in shape, you're keeping your entire being healthy. I think using that as a scorecard and talking about all those aspects of your wealth, that it's not just about one or the other, but it's about the connection between all of them. And then being able to say, well, what does this mean for me? I just love that question around, like, what is freedom anyway? That's such a great question because it really depends on who you are. And I feel like I've seen most often people come to me and say they're headed in a specific direction and it's the actual wrong direction. They thought they should head in this direction because that's what they've been told, or that's what they thought they wanted, or that's what their parents wanted. So when we do this initial assessment of their mission, vision, and values, being able to say, well, what does freedom mean to you? What is important time-wise to you? Who are the people in your life that you want to make sure that you don't lose when you are trying to build a business that may be taking you away from them? Having all of those things in mind. And I feel like I've seen many, many clients really develop and live the life that they want and live the life of their dreams. I always hear, I never thought that I would make this much money. I never thought I would have this much time. That's nice. It really comes down to choice and freedom and being able to really live the life that you want, which is why I focus on that. You can have the life that you want. You can live a great life and you can make an impact. All of those things can be true if you really navigate the choice that you have, the choice and the freedom that you have to build whatever you want.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And, it speaks to what you were saying earlier about that hustle culture with entrepreneurship and that the blinders are on, it's like full throttle. But what you're saying is there's a way to do this where you still have to work hard. Like, entrepreneurship is not easy. You still have to work hard. But if you're building it intentionally and you're thinking about wealth, maybe you're using these 5 key points and thinking about what that looks like, then you don't need to sacrifice everything because you're building a business with intention where it's like, I want to make a ton of money, but I also want to pick my kids up from school. And so it's like,
right?
okay, 'cause maybe that means you have to wake up early, or maybe it means that you have to work a little
Yeah.
bit later, but you're protecting the things
Yeah.
that matter.
That thing that you just said. You're protecting the things that matter because you will have to sacrifice some things. You will have to give up some other things. But those things don't matter, right? If you focus on the important things to you, you should put everything else by the wayside. You should be super hyper focused on the things that you want and the life that you want to build. And like we talked about, it's not going to go exactly as planned, or you may get to some part of this and realize, oh, that's not actually what I want. I'm going to make a change. It's this build, measure, learn cycle of keeping intention and awareness around what you're trying to do, what you're trying to build, and a next step closer to that thing. But keeping focused on those things and not being distracted by all the other things, putting those other things by the wayside and keeping focus.
Yes, exactly. Focus with intention. I love it. Okay, let's dive a little bit into the founder experience. I talk a bit about this from a different perspective, how, building a brand experience means, you need to have that founder story and what that looks like. And obviously you think about it as well, because you work with people and you work on that mindset and making sure that they're, like you said, building with intention. And so and of course, you work with folks from underrepresented communities. So founders in these communities feel pressure, I guess, to fit an existing business mold. So what do you tell them about building businesses around their identity instead?
Story is so important, right? Our stories, who we are, and our unique stories resonate with other people.
Yes.
That's what people want. People want connection. People want stories. So being able to really stay grounded in your story is important, and to be who you are. And this is why I was saying at the beginning, you really have to know who you are and how you want to show up in order to then express that to other people so they can see. One of my main values for me is leading by example. I want people to see me and know that people who look like me, people who are in my same situation, know that they can then do it too, because I'm doing it. I'm leading by example, not just talking about it. I'm showing them in my life, in the business that I'm building, all of those things. And also, like, I have a podcast. And so I try to bring on a lot of diverse voices so people can see people that look like them or that have a similar story like them, and know that you can do it too. And we can get out of this single-minded hustle culture. It's hard for me to say today.
Bad word.
That people, exactly, that people have been obsessed with, and like, oh, this is how it has to be. It doesn't have to be that way. And I feel like a lot of that was untrue. That somehow you have to sacrifice everything, or that I pulled myself up from my bootstraps. No, we can't do this in a silo. We need other people. We need to be connected to other entrepreneurs, and we need to know that we are not building this alone. But as you mentioned, our story is so important. Who we are and how we show up. Another mantra of mine that I love to tell myself is I'm lovable as I am, right? And knowing that I don't have to be somebody else. I don't have to show up as somebody else. I don't have to people please. I don't have to do any of that, because who I am is valuable enough. And so being able to also anchor people in that, their own story, their own value as a person of who they are, not what they're producing, not how they're serving, because that will take care of itself.
Right.
But if you know your story, you are using your identity as an asset, not a liability. You will connect with people in a way that is more connective, but also is more lasting, because people love connection and intimacy, and people want to know see the vulnerability around, yes, this isn't easy. This is how I messed up. These are things that I've done wrong that I would do differently. We want to hear those stories. And I think like that's the most beneficial thing that we can do as entrepreneurs and as founders, is to tell our story exactly the way it is and know that we are still lovable as we are.
Oh, that is so good. I love that. And so diving in just like a little, like one layer deeper, you talked about finding value in who you are as a founder. So how have you seen this be able to shape how they market, how they price, and build trust with their communities and their customers? What does that all look like?
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with valuing yourself, especially when you are marketing yourself, having that confidence to show off who you are, who you serve, and know that you are not for everyone. And nor do you want to be for everyone. You want to make sure that you are niched down as much as possible, so you can have the exact type of clients that you want, doing the exact type of thing that you want and having the impact that you want. You can't please everyone. nor should you try.
No.
So being really centered in who you are and the impact that you want to have is super valuable. But also when it comes to pricing, everyone underprices. Everyone underprices their services or the products because of this imposter syndrome or because they don't feel like they're valuable enough.
Right.
And so I often have to remind people that you are lovable and valuable as you are, and you are providing an immense amount of value to the world. And what's getting in your way when it comes to pricing is actually you. It's not the people who are buying, because they'll still buy, right? It's you saying, oh, it's not valuable enough, or I can't do it this way. That's all this internal stuff that we talked about at the beginning of that we need to change our mindset around. And it starts with knowing who you are and the value that you bring. Again, it's all intertwined. The value, the marketing, the value piece, knowing that you are worthy to take care of yourself first. So taking a profit from the business. A lot of people feel uncomfortable for that.
Very
But
uncomfortable.
if I'm trying to have an impact, I feel like it's just all aligned with knowing who you are, the value that you provide, and being able to align that then with your story, your brand, your marketing. I love what you do because the marketing piece is so important. Being able to really communicate with people your story and your brand and the value that you bring is a part of business building that people forget about. They think, oh, if I just have this great product, I don't need to worry about the marketing. Like, no, people need to know that the product's out there. You could have the best product in the world, and if people don't know it exists, it's worthless. So being able to know who you are and communicate that is also super important. It's all intertwined. And this is also why I love what I do, right? Being able to really engage with people, help people be vulnerable and open and share their story and clarify their story. And to be succinct, you need to know who you are. And the more conversations that you have with people, all these things are important into you really building a business that can thrive and survive the tumultuous times that will surely come.
Yes, indeed. And I think that you are a great example of this. You know, for the listeners who are going to go to your website, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch who want to learn more about who you are and what you do. And they're like, oh, I'm not a numbers person either. And they'll go in there and they'll be like, oh, thank goodness for Brian. But you'll see on his website, like Brian knows exactly who he is, and he knows exactly who he's serving, and he's not trying to be anybody else, and he's not trying to pretend he's for other people that he's not necessarily there to serve. And I think that is so important because, I think that this is such an interesting angle when we talk about niching down. I'm sure everyone's talked about it on some podcasts, and it's, yes, we know we have to niche, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't value who you are and you don't value who you want, like knowing who you want to serve and where your values align and where your skill sets align and having confidence in that, that's largely why people don't want to niche, is because they're too scared. They're thinking, well, if I don't serve everybody, then no one's going to call me. Like, what if I only want to help people who like to go fishing? It's like, well, then do it really well and have that confidence in knowing that you really just want to help people who fish. This is very odd reference. It's because I saw there's this advent calendar for people who fish. And I was like, that is brilliant because the people who fish really want this advent calendar.
Yep.
And so, you're going to find your people. Yeah, sure. It's going to take some time. The overnight successes that took 10 years, that's the reality. It's not going to be you. And having confidence in your skills and who you want to be for is I think really comes down to that value piece. And it largely, I would guess, largely plays into this mentality around finding your niche and being truly successful.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it's the ability to really know who you are and also iterate, right? I feel like I talked about this build, measure, learn cycle. You go to my website and you feel like you know who I am and how I speak, but that has taken time. It's taken time. It's taken me trying things out, trying things on and seeing how they fit. It's not going to be a one and done thing. It's always going to be build, measure, and learning and being able to iterate as much as you can. But that work is worth it. And getting out of our own way is worth it. And knowing that we are the ones that are getting in our way. I know I feel like I cannot say that enough. It's us, right?
Darn.
It's us that are getting in our way. Yep.
We want to blame everybody else, but it's like, no, it's you.
We want to blame everyone else, but there's usually one common denominator. And right, it's sort of hard to hear at first, but then also it's inspiring to say, oh, well, if I'm the problem, I can also be the solution. And so knowing that, having that choice, having that control, and saying I can be the solution in this circumstance and build whatever I want, as the first step in really taking a leap and saying, okay, so what are we going to do here? What does freedom mean to us? And going from there.
Ugh, I love it. I feel like that's a perfect place to close this, because my last question was really going to say, what is that last piece you want to leave people with? And I feel like that's exactly it. And there's a lot to unpack in this episode. And I hope that people will, re-listen to it and re-listen to it again, because there's pieces around here that, we dive into some of the nitty gritty, but at the same time, thinking about how are we getting in our way and how can we shift our mindset to really allow us to grow our profit as well as our purpose. And I think that is so incredible. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me on. I love talking about this stuff.
I know. I can tell. You have a podcast too. So, people who like to talk have podcasts. Yeah. That's why I have mine.
That's very true. You nailed us.
Yeah,
you nailed us both.
Chit chat away. But before we close off, I just want to do some rapid fire questions. This is how our listeners can kind of get to know, we know Brian, the professional, but let's know Brian, at home in his comfy clothes on the couch, coffee or tea?
Coffee, for sure.
Great.
100%.
Good choice. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Night owl for sure. Me in the mornings is a rough thing to get up, especially if I haven't gotten enough sleep.
I'm totally the same. I'm like, the sun goes down, the Slack messages stop, and it's just like, this is great. I love this.
Yep.
How do you decompress after a work day?
I usually go work out. I love pushing my body. So if I go to the gym, I'm excited to go to the gym in a few hours. Or if I can't actually get to the gym, I'll just take a walk outside. I love moving my body a little bit just to shake out whatever the day is, whatever has happened in the day.
There you go. Physical wealth at the same time.
Yeah, physical wealth.
Perfect.
Love the bring back.
Yeah. What is your go-to comfort food?
Oh gosh, I have many things, but I'd probably say popcorn. I have popcorn and chocolate every night. So I'm trying to choose between, well, can I say both? Popcorn and chocolate, literally every night. That's the last thing that I eat. And I love them both. I love them both. I love them separately. Like I eat one and then the other, but having them both
you don't melt it on top or anything?
I do not. Okay. I'm not a sweet and salty or sweet and savory together. Yeah. I like them separate, but I eat them both within, 2 minutes of each other.
Okay. And it's every single night, like clockwork. I love it.
Every single night, even if I've been out and had a lot of food and I probably shouldn't be eating, I'm like, I'll probably just have a little bit of popcorn and a little bit of chocolate.
Hey, why not? You know what you like. That's good. That's amazing.
You know what you like. Routine. I know myself.
It's a routine too.
That's also probably it. I love structure. I love routine. I love having consistency.
There you go. You're like, okay, it's bedtime now. I've had my chocolate. That's perfect.
It's a signal.
Yeah, exactly. Your body's like, And finally, what is your current brand obsession?
I love Cuts clothing. I was actually just...
Okay.
Oh, actually.
Oh, here it is.
This will say a lot about me. So I'm a little bit embarrassed to say it, but I will say it anyway. I love control and I love being able to really dissect everything. So I have an Excel spreadsheet for everything in my life, whether it's money, whether it's my workouts, whatever it is. But there's this new scale that does body mass measurements. So it's like a DEXA scan, which is a full body scale that talks about your muscle mass. And yeah, I'm literally nerding out right now. But there's a new one that is basically that you can have one in your home and it keeps, I shouldn't be saying this because Instagram will keep sending me the advertisements, but it's so cool because I love getting DEXA scans and having all that information. And now I can get one in my home.
Wow.
So that's been what I keep going back to and probably what I'm going to get for myself or have my husband get me for Christmas.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, that is awesome. And you're right. It does say a lot about you. So I'm glad that we could, dive deeper into Brian Thompson's mind. Where can people get in touch with you, learn more about you, if they want to chat more, learn more about finances, hire you, all the things?
You can always reach me on my website. It's btfinancial.com. I have a podcast, which is very aligned. So if you love this podcast, I imagine you will like mine. It's called Mission Driven Business. And we talk to entrepreneurs who tell their experience, strength, and hope around building a mission-driven business. And I also have solo podcasts that give you the tips and tactical tips that we talked about today. You can also find me on Instagram. That's where I am mostly on social media. I'm on LinkedIn some, but you can mainly find me on Instagram posting pictures and talking about myself as we do on social media.
Course. Amazing. Well, Brian, this has been such a delight. I've learned so much. I know my listeners have. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, that's a wrap on another episode of Talking Purpose. My hope is that today's episode gave you the tools and the inspiration to lead with even more intention. If you enjoyed the episode, please show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It's the best way to help us grow this community of changemakers. If you have a question for our guest or a topic you want us to dive into next, drop a comment below. I read every single one. I'm Katie Boothby Kung. Thanks for joining.